apologies. All right, good evening, everyone. We're here for our February 5th, 2024 Audit Committee meeting. All board members are present except Rob Sampson. We have a special guest this evening, Mr. Joseph Bienza, who's going to talk through some issues related to the athletic program as they relate to audit. So I just wanted to quickly recap why we invited you. We, back in our November meeting, talked about Title IX and what it requires, particularly with respect to athletics. We also talked about the involvement of booster clubs and had some questions. The board had questions about who is supposed to fund what's appropriate for a district expense versus a booster club expense. And in our November meeting, we had a presentation from Scott Cannell, who's one of the attorneys who supports the district. And just to quickly recap what we learned, and this is really sort of shorthand for anyone who's listening to this, please go watch the November meeting if you have questions. But my takeaways were that Title IX does not require complete parity between boys and girls athletics, and Title IX also is not limited to athletics. If we were to do a Title IX audit, we would look at the entirety of our offerings to determine if there are any deficiencies or inequities. And then with respect to booster clubs, it's most certainly tricky, and there were some words of caution offered to us. And basically what is for the board to determine is really as a matter of policy how involved the district might choose to be in the activities of athletic clubs, of booster clubs. And with that background, we wanted to circle back to what we talked about. I think we're going back now 2 academic years where we first introduced this topic of athletic funding. And Joe, I know you prepared some materials covering composition of teams and spending data. So I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. And we just shared this. It's basically 3 documents with the board. The first one is participation numbers and breakdown of sports offerings. Starting with 22 Sorry, I don't know why I did that. Yeah. So this is starting with the 22-23 school year. The offerings and the number of participants on each sports team. This is based on an enrollment of 249 students. 249 students does not reflect the population of middle high school. 249 students is what is known as our beds number. It's what NISTA uses to assign classes for sports and athletics. So the number 249 is grades 9 and 10 added together, and an average of 11 and 12 from November of the prior school year. So you can see, like I would say, in terms of offerings, you'll notice that it's skewed a little more towards female offerings, and the main reason for that is girls volleyball offers 3 levels of volleyball. Boys offers 1. The reason for that is a group of small schools in boys volleyball moved out of the fall season into the winter season because of the volume of sports that we offer in the fall. We just couldn't consistently maintain numbers. NISTA doesn't sponsor a state championship in the winter. The group of schools that moved to the winter primarily started with just varsity, and the modified levels just started to grow in boys volleyball. So that's why you see a discrepancy. Girls volleyball plays in the fall with 3 levels. The second document is 23-24 offerings, and this is based on a beds number of 260. We grew by 11 students, and I think that trend will continue. Our beds number is going to continue to go up. As far as participation numbers, you'll see, the fall is heavy because we offer more sports in the fall. I would say if you look at the numbers in a lot of our sports, they're not where you would necessarily want them to be. They're low. I think it's important to be aware that in grades 9 through 12, there's 2 current classes that have numbers in the 70s for students, which is low for our school. There's a class that has 24 males. You'll notice in the participation numbers, it's starting to increase on the modified level. That's because the enrollment is bigger in middle school. So I think we'll see that trend of participation increase. And I mentioned that because I know the time comes up from time to time about adding a sport or adding a level. I feel pretty strongly that'd be pretty challenging and would have a ripple effect possibly on other sports if we had way ahead those 2 class sizes hovering in the 70s. The next is spending by sport. What I'd say about spending is many of the costs roll over from season to season. We buy the same number of balls each year for each sport. We buy those off the BOCES bid, so we get good pricing on that. Officials cost, which is a pretty sizable number in the athletic budget that's contractual. We have that X number of officials on certain contests. That stays pretty fixed, but there's slight increases every 3 years because that's when the officials' contracts get renegotiated up their 3-year contract. Uniforms is where you'll see some fluctuation. We buy uniforms on a 4-year rotation, so that's where you'll see a spike in one particular program 1 year. There's some differences between sports. Some sports don't use officials. That's why you won't see officials listed in some of the sports. Some sports have entry fees, some don't. Some sports have rental fees associated with them. With athletic equipment, what we try and do is, a couple of large expense items per year. This school year, we upgraded our swimming pool timing system. 20-something years old, and the technology was really antiquated. So, we were due to replace that, so we did it. Other sport, not sport specific costs, we use a program called Audit. We use that to stream games, film games, and catalog games. And revenue, like catalog, each sport that Hudl covers has a library with all of the games in it. It's something that colleges use for recruiting purposes. Students can put their highlights together, share film out with colleges. Right now, we use Hudl for football, boys and girls volleyball. There's a streaming camera in the gym. This year, they introduced the technology in soccer, so we use it for soccer. We have a outdoor camera that we're trying to get ready to use for lacrosse. It'll automatically film and upload this program from the Huddle, and it films it, uploads it, catalogs it for you. And we also have a feature called Huddle Assist, where the video gets sent out and it's broken down, statistics and things like that. Huddle is actually expanding next year to baseball and softball. And we pretty much buy the biggest package exclusively involved, so we get part of it back. But it's something, it's expensive, but it's beneficial. We also have medical supplies. We also have dues that we pay for, which are colonial council dues, Section 2 dues, and miscellaneous.
Are those on here too?
I didn't put everything that's under sports specific.
Okay.
I didn't put the non-sport specific things on there.
I
I'm more than happy to share.
I can speak to that a little bit as far as how it breaks down. So if you see in the, well, you didn't look at the function summary, but in the function summary, $485,000 is the total amount budgeted. 2/3 of that are salaries. That includes Joe's full salary plus all of the coaches. So that takes care of 2/3 of the expense. You have $15,000 for equipment, $15,000 for uniforms, $15,000 for supplies, and then you have the Huddle system that Joe was talking about. That's $25,000. You have $51,000 for referees, $23,000 between fees and membership dues, and $8,000 for the trainer that takes care of all the medical stuff. So those are the big pieces that are in there. But as I said, 2/3 of it is salary.
Joe, or not Jim, within the function level summary, there are also other categories where I would imagine some of the cost supports the athletic program, like facilities. Like
Yes.
purchasing the tennis courts.
There are items that are in there, whether it's maintaining the field or resurfacing the courts or redoing the track a little bit. Yes, but those aren't specifically called out in the athletics. We were focusing on that.
Athletic. Go ahead.
I just remember at one point there was a requirement to have an ambulance on site at all times during football games. And there was a cost associated with that. Is that still the case?
No. We and I would have to go back and look at the language, but the preferred medical support is a certified athletic trainer.
So change.
Yeah, it was never a requirement to have an ambulance, and we actually never paid for it. When Voorheesville had volunteer ambulance service, they just paid it for it. But the preference in New York City is to have a trainer because they have a specific certification to treat, prevent, and assess athletic risk. So that's the preference, but it's not required. It's recommended, strongly recommended.
And what I've seen, most schools, like your trainer doesn't travel, but when you go to the other school, their trainer will help with your.
There's a lot of schools have a contract with a company called Top Form, which supplies their trainers. Bigger schools actually full-time.
Anyone have questions on what's been covered so far? I know I'm moving quick.
Can I just ask, I noticed in the winter there's expenses for ice hockey.
Yeah.
And I thought that we didn't have any out of pocket.
No, we share it with 4 other school districts, but they split it fine.
Oh, I thought the was paid.
The families do have, the families that have student athletes that play hockey, there is a cost that is well. And the ice time officials and trainer, we all split.
So, Joe, can you talk a little bit about what gets funded by booster clubs versus the district? Like I see on the spreadsheet for all expenses, there's a line for lights. You want to comment on that?
And I think we're going to talk a little bit more about that kind of policy, but I see the Booster Club primarily pays for, should primarily pay for things like a banquet, gear, with the athletes' name on it, things like that. We did pay for lights for homecoming this year. In the past, the Booster Club has. I think this is the first year that we took over, maybe the second year we took over the cost of that.
So I think that's one subject that, and you mentioned policy. I know you're gonna come to our next policy meeting, which is on Wednesday. And I think that's where we'll get more into sort of what's appropriate for district expense versus booster club expense. And I think where we're headed is, or at least where I'm headed, is identifying the criteria that would be appropriate, not defining any particular category of expense, but more like what are the criteria that makes it appropriate for one versus the other. But certainly I hope the conversation here can inform the policy development, because that's certainly appropriate for the board. Did you want to mention anything about athletics and police capital project?
Yeah, so as you know, we're doing our new elementary school project that's coming up, and we are resurfacing and refinishing the field, the elementary school. We did put money this year and previous years into tennis courts and the track. The track, as you know, that was Band-Aid. That was a 5-year Band-Aid that we put on there. So the life expectancy is about to go in 5 years. That's when we're going to be ready for another capital project at the secondary complex, and understanding what that means for the district. Starting those conversations after we're all set and done with getting this project up and running. That's the story. We started looking at what we can do in the future, and then what does it mean for our athletic program? Are we going to put money into the athletic program for our facility when we're doing the project? So what does that look like, and how do we accommodate the needs of the buildings in the district while we're doing so?
All right, anyone else have questions for Joe? If not, in the remaining 7 minutes, I'll jump to the rest of the minutes.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. But I just want to say one thing is, if you look at what Joe did and put together, first off, Joe and Jessica, helping. Thank you. You did a great job putting all this stuff together. And it's very balanced, across the board. There's a lot of balance here. So I'm really putting a lot of time and effort into looking at this. So thank you, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so real quick for the rest of our audit committee agenda, all the materials are posted along with the board materials. The minutes were distributed for our meeting on November 6th. If anyone has questions or comments, just pass them along. I'll do a quick claims auditor report summary. To date for this year, we've had 8 exceptions for $8,008, which is 0.08% of total warrants. So I don't know if that's good luck or bad luck, or all these aids in there, but overall, it's a very minor percentage of our expenditures where we've identified exceptions, and we've looked to our claims auditor for being so diligent in identifying
And
the
our finance
exceptions.
clerk and making sure everything's there. So,
Yes, thank you. I'm gonna jump to the current function level status for the general fund. There were only a couple of lines that caught my eye. One was 1964, Jim, the refund of taxes. I think it's pretty rare that we have a refund, right?
yes. This was a court ordered refund, where there was a dispute, and they went to court and they said, okay, yeah, it really should be X amount rather than Y amount. And so we got a court order requiring us to refund. It is a fairly rare situation.
Right, so someone protested their
Yes.
assessment. Okay, makes sense. And then for in-service training, line 2070, it looks like we're slightly over budget. Is that related to the Wonders program or something else?
Partially, but it's also because we're planning for the rest of the year as well. So those encumbrances might apply to other events that come up. We do have for next year an amount in that's going to be larger.
Anybody else have questions on question on the summary. School lunch budget loss.
So we updated for the audit, and as we saw after September, we were I think 37,000 below. That carried through November, and carried through October and November. Then in December, we received a one-time payment that was the same as last year, about $37,000. The rest of the expenses were even in the month with the revenue. So we're actually only less than 3,000 negative at this point. That won't continue because we have February and we have April where we lose a week, both of them. But since we did receive that money, we should not be quite so negative as we've been in 2-3 years past.
Yeah, so we almost got in the black, at least for the month of November. We were pretty close.
Very good.
Okay, all right, I think that's all we have for our agenda. Anyone have any other questions? School lunch or otherwise? Great, all right, that concludes our meeting.